You're listening to Tara Lynn's A Geek Saga podcast. This episode features audio from a previously aired live video webcast.
Yes, it is. I was going to eat it while we did this, but I'm just going to think about it instead.
We're live. Zach is eating human beef.
How appropriate. Well, it's not really beef if it's human. It's
right?
It's pork. It's just pork.
So I am Tara. I am the organizer, aka Queen Regent of Ice and Fire Con. This is the first of a few weeks in a row where we're doing some spooky themed panels. Meant to start this a little earlier, but it's been a really busy couple months, you guys. So in lieu of unfortunately not having Ice and Fire Con next weekend, we're just trying to put out some virtual content for everybody to enjoy. And tonight's little virtual panel is we're having you. What is it? We're having you for dinner. Right? Yes. Mm-hmm. We're having you for dinner. It's about cannibalism in Song of Ice and Fire. And I'm just going to let my fellow panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll dig right in. We'll start with Chloe. Chloe over here.
Hi, I'm Chloe. I am the mistress of whispers for Ice and Fire Con. It's why my hair is so big. It's full of secrets. I am also a co-host on Girls Gone Canon, where we're covering His Dark Materials and A Song of Ice and Fire, point of view by point of view right now.
Hi, I'm Wendy Nerd. I am a Twitch streamer. You can find me on twitch.tv/Wendy Nerd. You can also find me on Twitter at twitter.com/thewendynerd or wendynerdwrites.tumblr.com. I'm a meta writer. I'm an essayist. I'm a opinion haver person. And I'm an idiot. So, and I wear ridiculous costumes all the time, as you can see. So, hi.
I'm Zach. I'm also an idiot. I'm on Game of Owns podcast that I co-host with my friend Hannah, and we talk about Song of Ice and Fire. Here we are.
Well, and originally Game of Thrones, right? But like now there's no more shows, so everybody's just all ASOIAF all the time.
Yeah. What else are we gonna do?
Yeah, it's great actually for me.
Talk about the hedge night. Come on.
Okay, so we're going to run about an hour for this panel tonight, like normal convention panel time. We'll try not to go over. If there's anybody watching live, please join us in the chat, ask us questions, interject. We'll do our best to, include anybody who has things they want us to talk about, et cetera, et cetera. So this panel was the lovely Chloe's idea, but I just loved the idea of it. To be honest, it's not something we've ever even talked about at Ice and Fire Con, and we've delved into some pretty specific topics, but it is the right time of year to talk about the creepy things. So we honestly, cannibalism, it's not something that is ever really... It's always kind of hinted at, sometimes very, very strongly in the series. I think there are some specific mentions, but generally it's kind of that thing we all know happens, but it's never specifically stated that it is exactly what is happening. I don't know, Chloe, you did more of the research on like the history of cannibalism and everything. So you want to...
Yes, I know the most about eating people here, and I would like that to be known amongst all of my friends in close quarters here. We've all been amongst each other. We know. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know that much about eating people, but I have done a little bit, especially because cannibalism is such a broad spectrum of a theme in fantasy, in religion, in culture. I mean, the idea of cannibalizing something for power doesn't always have to be flesh, which I think we'll talk about. And there's a bunch of different types of cannibalism. There's ritualistic, there's sacrificial, survivalism, sexual cannibalism we'll talk about, I'm sure. And it's something that's very strong in warfare and in dehumanizing a people, like Japanese soldiers in World War II, who were obviously starved and low on supplies, but were also famous for horrible war atrocities. They would eat bodies of Korean or Chinese. There's also endocannibalism, where tribes would consume ground up bones and ashes of cremated kinsmen in an act of mourning, which is classified as endocannibalism, but flesh technically isn't being eaten in the flesh form. And those aren't really believed to be driven by need for protein or other food. That's more of a ritualistic type of cannibalism, something that's more of an honor. There's a book by someone named Beth Conklin who wrote that it's called Consuming Grief, Compassionate Cannibalism in an Amazonian Society, which depicts modern cannibalism practices in the Wari tribe of the Amazonian rainforest, which is a lot about expression of compassion and grieving for the loved ones and giving them safe passage to another world. So interesting. It's not always in these crazy savage cultures, as you might think in A Song of Ice and Fire with like the Skagosi, for example, I'm sure we'll talk about tonight. It's not always as it seems, I don't think.
Yeah, there's a lot of cases of cannibalism in movies where it's considered like the ultimate taboo. Among them, like I'm thinking of like movies like Ravenous and Bone Tomahawk, and of course the famous Cannibal Holocaust and all the ripoffs of that. Where it's definitely played up like, look at these savage cannibals. Although if you watch Cannibal Holocaust, it's one of those, it's pretentious, but it's like one of those movies where it's like, who are the real cannibals? Because it's basically a bunch of white people going into the Amazon and being complete monsters to these people. And then revenge happens.
Turtle too.
Yeah. But the animal cruelty is not great. Also the rape and the murder and everything. But yeah, like it shows up in so many things. Like in Vampire the Masquerade, there's a clan of vampires called the Nagaraja that don't just drink blood but also eat flesh. And then there's also various fairy tales where cannibalism is a theme, like Hansel and Gretel, and then in Snow White, the evil queen wants Snow White's heart to eat so she can absorb her beauty.
And I mean, I feel like, which is not the Snow White, that is the original like grim fairy tale Snow White. You know what I mean? That's not the one that I guess like especially people of our generation grew up on, where there was no bathing in the blood of virgins type of stuff going on in our Disney fairy tale era.
Had to clean up the edges of real life just a little bit.
Yeah, because it's Disney. I'm rolling my eyes right now.
Well, I mean, they also left out the part where the prince keeps Snow White as a corpse and then rapes her corpse for months on end. So
fairy tale.
Like that's also in like the original fairy tale. Like actually, the witch.
So not even the grim version.
Like,
before.
Not even the grim version. In like one of the oldest versions, she's still a corpse even after he kisses her. But she's such a beautiful corpse. He takes her home, and it's only after, and it's actually a poisoned hairpin that kills her, and it's only when he insists upon marrying the corpse, and then his mother goes to dress up the bride to be, I guess, and she pulls out the poisoned hairpin, and that's what brings Snow White back to life.
That's the one with also the poison laces too.
Yes,
on the corset. The apple was still there. It's just farther. There were several.
It up.
There's several ways of poisoning.
There's many ways we can skin a princess. You guys.
I just read the chat, and Jeff just said good evening to Jeff only. So exactly. I have to say,
it's okay. I'm just going to threaten him with the terrible picture of us from Ice and FireCon 2017. So anyway, moving on. Other than actual real life, when I say real life, I mean like the fairy tales that we know from from historical purposes. It's not just ASOIAF that brings up cannibalism, obviously. I know Chloe mentioned in his Dark Materials, this might be, was this in the first book?
It's in the second, but there's no spoiler because you don't know what it means if you haven't read the second book. So it's not
I apologize.
It's
no. I'm almost
I haven't read it since I was 15 and I need it. I haven't read it since I was
basically the Panseer-born think that there's the Panseer-born who are bears. They're beautiful Arctic bears, and they think that eating someone is a sign of respect for them. Like, instead of letting another lesser animal eat your friend after they die, you should eat them yourself, which that's very respectable, I think. Like, taking one for the team, quite literally eating one for the team.
Yeah, convenient too.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's actually, I can't remember exactly when the His Dark Materials books were published, but, you know, this is kind of the more modern, you know, I guess take, quote unquote, on cannibalism to go along with the Song of Ice and Fire stuff. Obviously, there's definitely some of it in mythology, but I guess, and to be honest, I've never really read much Anne Rice, but there is some in Queen of the Damned. Which I watched that movie a million years ago, and I remember next to nothing about it. And
it's not in the movie. They leave out almost everything about Akasha's backstory in the Queen of the Damned movie. In the books, the twins Maharet and Makare are from an ancient tribe of people that one of the things that they do, they're witches, and one of the things they do is they eat their family or family members after they die. It's like considered this like sacred rite of passage, and Akasha comes in and invades and destroys their tribe in the midst of their funerary rites for their mother, where they were going to eat their mother's brain and eyes, and ultimately, so that's like just a thing that happens with their tribe, and that's in the Anne Rice books. I'm trying to remember. There's also Wendigo myths, where people become ravenous, skin and bones hunter type things, because when they resort to cannibalism as like a punishment.
Yeah, there's a really messed up Stephen King book, which that could be many of them. I'm sorry, I could be a little more specific. But Survivor Type, it follows a shipwrecked surgeon who ends up pulling a Vargo Hoat and having to eat himself. But this is a good one. He uses smuggled cocaine to anesthetize his body first.
How does that work? Like, how do they do that in the book? Does he just rub it all over with wounds that he makes?
Yeah, it's basically, it's a little, how do I say this? Suspension of disbelief.
Okay.
You know? Yeah, like you have to believe this guy's going to end up out surviving on an island on his own, smuggling cocaine, shipwrecked, on his own time anyways. And then you have to believe he's so hungry he's going to eat himself after doing all the cocaine.
Or he's on so much cocaine he thinks that's a good idea to eat.
So it's kind of like a Stephen King book is what I'm trying to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, they're not all winners. I'm going to be honest with you. There's a couple winners, but
I don't really know who is doing a bunch of cocaine and then wants to eat anything, let alone people. But
I mean, I guess you just get bad ideas. I think that's the thing. Yeah,
wasn't there?
Are we sure it wasn't bath salts? Okay.
Yeah, like PC. Are bath salts and PCP the same thing? I don't even know.
I don't think so. I think bath salts
okay,
because
PCP
for drugs that are like unnamed, that like weird.
Are they the same thing? Bath salts?
Lots of different things I think are bath salts. Also, real bath salts are bath salts too. You can't like some of those you just don't do.
No,
you just put in your bath.
None of them. Anyways, yeah, we got on a tangent about.
We here at Song of Ice and Fire Con do not endorse the smoking of actual bath salts.
No,
do not.
So that's how you take bath salts.
I was just remembering that time where the guy in Miami was running around fighting people. Okay,
no. Similar thing happened to some.
I think
but somebody else on PCP once in like LA or something once ate somebody or tried to eat somebody, and of course we have Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah. Well, and also I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's definitely been real life, and not super recent, but the Donner Party. I mean, and also, in other like modern media, Fargo, right? That happens in Fargo, correct?
There's a wood chipper I know, but I don't know if they eat the body. That might just be
I thought there was cannibalism.
Are you talking about the show or the movie?
The movie. It's been a long time, y'all. But there's definitely cannibalism in The Walking Dead. In I think several cases, honestly. Like there's the hunters are the only ones that like specifically do it, but I'm pretty sure there's more than one, especially in the comics.
There's cannibalism in American Horror Story.
Oh,
Hannibal, yes.
Yes,
Hannibal is an
Hannibal.
excellent.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't leave out Hannibal.
Yeah, Hannibal.
Hannibal is. He's our favorite cannibal, I think. Mads Mikkelsen version, anyways.
I don't know. I like the 4 guys that end up getting burnt by Stannis' southern men. I feel for them, but that's just me.
I feel for them
That's
too.
just, we'll get there.
We've been over this, Chloe. We've been over this. One of them's like 16 years old. It's so sad.
So sad. There is, speaking of like high fantasy, C.S. Lewis's Silver Chair actually has your protagonists are staying with like giants at one point, and the giants feed them venison, but later it's revealed that the venison is from a talking stag, which is basically cannibalism in Narnia. Fuck Narnia, but like it's basically cannibalism in Narnia. So I mean, it's kind of like the idea of, trading that bit of life for death, as we talk about in A Song of Ice and Fire, and
like
death
food.
for life. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, there's a good point of the idea of like, all cannibalism has power behind it in one way or another, whether it's emotional power or survival power or power, like king's blood power. It's almost when you think of, plants, chlorophyll, right? Like when they just make their own food, their own cannibalization food. So I don't know. I think cannibalism isn't constantly the worst choice. Anyways, we'll get into that. We are giving our takes, right? We're all supposed to come to terms with our takes on cannibalism in this hour, right? Yeah. Is that what this is about?
Jeff has a question that's not an insult. Should I read it out? Jeff has a question that's actually a question, not an insult.
Let's look at Jeff. So Brendan B. Fish, famed podcaster, said in the chat, what would you say to the idea the burning works to end the snow and save Stannis, but it's only because it's human sacrifice to the old gods, not R'hllor?
We didn't go over that in the podcast, so that's actually a pretty interesting question.
Sure.
I mean, I feel like I don't know, like, because here's the thing: do they eat? Are those the people that they eat? It's been a while, y'all, since I've read.
So
those could be good people to eat because you're cooking them. So
yeah,
I haven't really thought of that.
I mean, if it was, I mean, the thing is if that was the motive, sure, but that wasn't what the motive was. The motive was the Southern men thought that was a bad thing, and that could, anyways, let's not get into semantics. But if we were in a what if scenario, maybe Brendan B. Fish, maybe if we were in a what if scenario,
sure.
I think it's definitely possible, especially since we have signs that the old gods are present really, really like all over that chapter, and especially like in later chapters, as we've seen that the old gods are like Bran's there. We know Bran's there to an extent. And then, and we know Bran has had some brushes with cannibalism himself.
I mean, I would say he's possibly had the most.
Yes.
Of modern like current timeline
of the ASOIAF characters.
Characters. Like, if we all believe the theories about the sow that Coldhands
had a theory.
I believe it. I'm sorry, I don't trust Coldhands at all. I know everybody wants to know, but
it's not a theory because it's literally we see the vision through Summer, and Summer sees the mutineers, and we hear like it's the mutineers. She sees like the dead guys, and then the meat comes, and he's like, "It's Cord."
Yeah, the only reason I think that anybody wants to believe it, the only reason I think anybody's in denial about that being Long Pig is because people think Coldhands is Uncle Benjen, which, like, and that not Uncle Benjen, he couldn't be a cannibal. Yeah, he could.
No.
Yeah, he could. He totally 100% could. And there's also, I was thinking about the White Walkers, like, earlier, and I forgot to put it in our document, but, like, considering they reanimate corpses and they are kind of humanesque, what do we think? Like, is that almost a form of cannibalism in itself when they resurrect people or make White Walkers from babies or whatever?
Commanding flesh.
Move the concept around. I think it might work, but I'm just grateful that they don't eat people. That's not something that we're facing. That we know. Exactly,
that we know. Yeah.
Imagine if that was part of it, though. At this point, that they were also eating people. That would be extreme.
Yeah, if they were having
zombies now.
Well, I mean, and I guess let's like, I think we need to define like and when I say define, I mean very loosely the term cannibal, because like if you are a dragon eating humans, I don't think that makes like you are a cannibal. And I again, I know that this isn't the technical meaning of the term cannibal, but like if you are a cannibal, to me, that is you are eating those of your own kind.
Is that not cannibalism? Is that not what it is?
I thought that there was a more specific definition to it. I honestly could be wrong about the exact definition. But generally, like you're eating, like cannibalism is eating those of your own kind. So like someone in the chat was asking, you know, like about Shaggy Dog, like until I see Shaggy Dog eating me another dire wolf, or maybe even just another wolf, I would say no.
Well,
yes,
it's funny.
He's vicious and uncontrollable, and I would not put it past him one bit to do that. But so far, we have not seen him. And that's the thing, like animals attack others of their kind all the time. They don't necessarily eat others of their kind.
Yeah.
They carry around
their
bones
like
and stuff,
Skagos, like it's rumored to be cannibal city, you know. And that's like a whole like thing. And then we've also got Bran eating human meat as well, warging into summer and noting its taste. So
yeah, does that cannibal without the other stuff?
I think that makes Bran a cannibal because he is experiencing the actual consumption. It might not be, well, because it's not his physical body. He doesn't receive sustenance from it, but he knows what he's doing, and he knows it's wrong deep down. And he's experiencing like the taste and the feel of it. I think that that's a close enough connection to be considered cannibalism for sure.
Do we think it's a bad thing? That cannibalism is a bad thing? Is that the overall
I do
of the panel? Yeah. So
I mean,
cannibalism is bad. What about the Panzerbjorn?
Why do you think it's bad though?
Yeah.
Because it's gross.
That's the thing.
I do a lot
like
of gross stuff.
Have you ever been hungry?
If you're murdering somebody to eat their flesh
for funsies,
funsies,
that's bad. Yes.
Like,
but
we're
also,
talking about like
also,
the Peasbury situation. It's I understand, like it's understandable, but I do think like it's not. If you're going to do it, it should be something that's done only in the most extreme circumstances. I guess that's like I don't think you should seek it out or
like. I don't mind eating cow or pig or chicken. I wouldn't eat dog or horse or cat. You know, because they're knowingly. I would never ever choose. And honestly, if I found out that I'd eaten them, I'd probably throw up.
Have you ever eaten deer? Like venison?
Oh yeah, deer. Mm-hmm.
I've had venison.
Word.
I think there's a difference between like not just domesticated animals, but domesticated like pet animals that are companions, and you know. So again, like it's one of those things where it's like I wouldn't necessarily judge somebody for eating those things, but like when it comes to other people, because here's the other thing, like when we're talking about animals eating others of their kind, I mean Panzerbjorn is a different subject because they're sentient, but like when we're talking about non-sentient animals like eating others of their kind, it's like, you know, like they're still animals, right? Like that's an animal a dog would kill and eat another dog if they were hungry enough, or a cat would kill and eat another cat.
My cat ate its puke tonight. My cat literally puked, and then both of them fought over who was going to try to eat it, and I had to pull them away. Yeah, it's part of you. I mean,
you're right.
I'm just saying. Yeah. And they'd eat.
Well,
if one of them was dead, they'd eat the other. They would eat the other if one of them was dead.
Little kids eat their boogers.
Yeah, is there nutrition in boogers or fingernails? I've never thought.
I know.
Look that up.
This is actually getting too. You know, this cannibalism conversation is getting too gross. Okay, Lady Hornwood forced into auto cannibal.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the other thing is like I don't know. Like if I was really that hungry, would I eat a part of myself before I would eat another human?
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, so there's a lot of that we hear in A Song of Ice and Fire, right? Like that's not, like we mentioned earlier, Vargo Hout, for example, that's punishment, that Gregor lays the punishment down and feeds him his dismembered limbs over time and he thinks it's some crackling wonder. Anyways, I'm sorry, just the idea of being dismembered and then fed it, that's a little different too, okay? A little different situation, but...
Which is what happened in The Walking Dead too, by the way.
Yes,
wait,
absolutely.
Wait. Have you ever seen A Nightmare on Elm Street 5?
No.
Mm.
Okay, so there's a kill in Nightmare on Elm Street 5 where Freddy, there's this girl who has like eating disorders because she's a model and her mom is crazy. And he has her have a dream where she eats like a doll of herself, but then is being force-fed her own stomach while people laugh at her. So there's that. That's cannibalism, auto-cannibalism. Oh, okay, I just thought of a really gross example too. I guess cannibalism happens a lot in porn because anything that involves swallowing, I guess.
Does that count as
cannibalism?
I don't know. If fingernails do, that definitely does, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, I had to bring it up.
certain amount,
Chloe, if puke counts, then that counts for sure.
it sure does, Zach. And I think there's a certain amount of self-cannibalization that we see in the series mixed with sexual cannibalization. And recently, one of my co-hosts, another one of my hosts on Girls Gone Canon, Eliana, has been talking a lot about cannibalism in A Song of Ice and Fire on her podcast. And one of our friends, Donica on Tumblr, wrote a really cool meta about this. And cool enough that I logged on to Tumblr for the first time in however long, right? But she said
anymore.
no, she wrote this basically about some of the sacrifice in the King's Prize and how the recurring theme of incest in the story is also kind of a form of consuming your own flesh and blood. And she wrote about how the Targaryens practice incest to preserve their connection to the dragons, but also this behavior cannibalizes their destiny because behind the stillbirths and all the mental illness is this cannibalization of them marrying each other and practicing this incest. So real life examples are, for example, Queen Victoria's hemophilia, which within a few generations killed off some of the royal houses in Europe and the male descendants. And besides pharaohs, George also has these in mind, other real life examples of dynastic inbreeding. Craster is a huge example of this because he practices incest as a means of survival and then rapes his own daughters to produce male heirs to give to the others and to sacrifice to the others, much like another Cronus parallel, subjecting his heirs to this sacrifice. So in Craster's character, you get the incest, the cannibalism, as we learn, because he runs out of pigs, and ritual sacrifice overlap in a big ball of horror. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, also like with Craster's daughters and I mean, who is it that he is serving up again? I honestly can't remember. It's like when he runs out of pigs or whatever. But I mean, just the fact of his like Chloe said, the cannibalizing of like the bloodline, essentially, like you see that in the Targaryens, you see it in the madness, but they're still all, like generally pretty attractive and, they look the same, but they're all still like attractive kind of physically for the most part, healthy people. But then with Craster's daughters, the ones that, because they're the ones that he keeps alive, they're just generally weaker. And I mean, I can't remember how Gilly is described, but none of them are attractive people. Like they're all kind of like, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure.
Bloodline.
Yeah. Well, and the constant, rehashing of that bloodline when he's, I mean, again, because his bloodline is even more screwed than the Targaryen one. Let's be honest, because they did at least at some point introduce
new people, cousins.
Yeah. There were cousins and aunts and uncles and.
Thank God for House Valerian, guys.
Yeah,
Thank God for House Valerian.
I mean, don't get that thankful. That's not that far down the tree, okay?
No.
I'm being obviously exaggerating.
Compared to
I'm exaggerating.
Being the only dad of all those.
Thank the Durandons. I think that's the best we could do there is thank the Durandons.
Well, and I mean, there's outside of and we, I mean, if you guys want to keep delving into the idea of incest as a sort of cannibalism in a way, they're not physically eating each other for the most part up until, Crasser runs out of pigs. But there's also like so many other examples. We've already mentioned the Skagosi. And they're we don't really know much about them yet. We only know the basics that we've been told, which is that they definitely used to like raid and kill the men of other islands, and then so they could keep their women, and they would eat the men that they killed. Of course, there's I can't remember what they're called, but the clan, there's one of the clans that's like north of the wall that we absolutely.
The Thens.
Is it the Thens? For some reason, I always want to forget that it's the Thens, because I just keep remembering
it's not the
Thens.
It's the Ice River. It's the Ice River clans.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
No, it's not the Thens. They made it the Thens.
In the show, they made it the Thens, and
the
that's
balls
always
of brown.
Yeah, that's what's confused me, because in the books, it's no, that one Then married the oh my god, whose name is escaping me, Alice
Karstark and Sigurd.
Yeah, Sigurd. Thank you. And I'm like, no. The Thens are they're not good people, but they're not cannibals.
Yeah.
They're
and we
not,
see,
they don't we see people or haven't eaten people.
But they're savages, everyone. They are the free folk are savages, you see. And I think we're gonna see that with Skagos, right? I think we're being fed, we're being fed some lies there. I don't think that the Skagosi probably do it for more ritualistic purposes if they're eating meat. I don't think they're just eating meat from humans left and right for fun. I think that it's a ritualistic thing. I think they probably
I feel like the Starks would have intervened at some point. I feel like the Starks would have intervened at some point if that were actually true.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're far enough out that nobody really cares about them. As far as we know, nobody's given a crap about the Skagosi or been to that island in a long ass time.
Kind of like a don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
We don't fuck with you.
Sarah Charles brought up a very good example, Tyrion, the bowls of brown, and Tyrion giving people he doesn't like to.
For sure. Yeah. No, that was definitely something on our list to talk about, because we all know we all know that the mystery meat in those bowls of brown isn't always rats.
Yeah.
No, it ain't.
And the thing is, the people who live there, who live in Flea Bottom, are too poor to care. I think it's they're just excited to get some meat in their stew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't
ask,
and also, it's definitely a don't ask, don't tell thing. But also, I think that the people that live there, they don't necessarily know that there are people like Tyrion giving people they don't like to the cooks in Flea Bottom.
They don't necessarily have a choice because of the people like Tyrion.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting that out there.
I love reminding everybody that Tyrion's a piece of shit. I love that.
I don't think that's fair. I think that Tyrion, A, he is a great character. B, I think he's got a lot of fucking issues. C, I think he's done a lot of messed up shit. But D, he's likable for a reason when you first meet him.
He's likable, but he's also a bad person.
Wendy, let me finish my thought. He's likable for a reason, but he's also... we're supposed to like him. It doesn't matter if we don't. Objectively, you're supposed to be like, that Tyrion, he's a bad apple, but I kind of like him. I kind of like his rebellious style. So he's going to have some sort of good outcome someday,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I think he's gonna trick Daenerys into burning down King's Landing, but that's just me.
Yeah, trick.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think Daenerys has to be tricked into anything. Is there anything else about the bowls of brown, other than just we know that people are literally
classism? It's classism.
Wait, didn't Gendry at some point talk about the bowls of brown?
I think briefly, yeah. I mean, I there's so many characters that mention them, or and really,
but Gendry's one of the characters that would have actually eten them.
It's a lot of mentioning in passing, I think.
Did he talk about people being in it, or just talk about the bowls?
I don't remember.
Yeah, because that's the thing. The thing is that we don't really get the POVs from the people who would be eating that stuff. Our all of the POV characters in this series, with the exception of a couple of the prologue and epilogue characters are highborn. Like they all are. So none of them are eating bowls of brown. So we know what goes on because of what Tyrion does, and because of, I think it's Arya. Arya definitely has to, Arya has to eat bowls of brown, or she does eat bowls of brown at one point when she's like living as a rat in the streets of King's Landing or whatever, I believe. But
and even over in Bravos, right, in the House of Black and White, they feed her meat, and she kind of gets weird and suspicious about it being pale, and she's like kind of horrified. He's like, no, it's only pork, child. So again, back to that idea with Bran, it's only pork. Other white meat, I don't think it's only pork. And I read I'm trying to remember where I read it was probably Reddit or something, but somebody said something interesting about thinking like maybe that's how the Faceless Men get their powers, similar to how Bran would get extra powers from the weirwood from blood sacrifice, right? Like the Faceless Men maybe through cannibalization take power from that human's life force, and that's how they're able to do the faces, because after that, what does Arya get access to?
So you think it's eating, maybe, and you think that could have been human meat that Arya had?
Could be.
I've always wondered about that, about them and the like sort of.
And then there's the JOJENPASTE theory.
Okay.
That runs with the JOJENPASTE theory. Do you want me to read the bit from Bran 1 in A Dance with Dragons?
Sure,
yeah.
All right. Behind her, Hodor was tearing eagerly at a chunk of hot, charred flesh as blood and grease ran down into his beard. Wisps of smoke rose from between his fingers. Hodor, he muttered between bites. Hodor. His sword lay on the earthen floor beside him. Jojen Reed nipped at his own joint with small bites, eating each chunk of meat a dozen times before swallowing. The ranger killed a pig. Coldhands stood beside the door, a raven on his arm, both staring at the fire. Reflections from the flames glittered from 4 black eyes. He does not eat, Bran remembered, and he fears the flames. So it's pretty, like, they know that they had destroyed the raiders. Like, they killed the raiders, and there's been no fucking pigs around. So, yeah. It's Soylent Green.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, and I mean, that's straight up, that is straight up me. I mean, JOJENPASTE is like a different thing. That's like where, I mean, we don't, is at this point, do we think Jojen is dead? Like, I thought that they were just kind of, I'll be honest, it's been almost 4 years since I reread the series. So like, my idea was that they were like bleeding him.
He hasn't been seen. And I'm guessing he's being bled.
That's what I thought. Like
slaughter.
Yes, like I didn't think he was being cut up and his like meat was being served.
No, not his meat.
The idea that I got was
I think blood drinking counts as cannibalism, though. Like I think that totally qualifies blood drinking.
I think in this case, especially when they're mixing it with like when they're mixing it up and making it seem like it's food and it's not like the whole simple like I'm a vampire, like I'm like bathing in the blood of virgins. He's like straight up eating like eggcorn paste mixed with Jojen blood.
Well, and that's what's interesting though, is to turn that on its side. I mean, up until the 20th century, drinking the blood of other beings was subscribed as like a health benefit or something for remedies. Up until the 20th century, that's not that long ago. So I'm just saying,
also nutrition.
Consider that. And exactly, nutrition, iron, platelets,
like,
protein.
Pastoral societies would often drink from the legs of their horses, from their mares for nutrition when they didn't have food. And, you know, they're able to stay alive off that shit. So why not? The JOJENPASTE is cool though, because what the properties within his bloodline, or being a green seer, like being able to have the blood in your mouth and swallow it, allow you to see further or to trip out on it, is crazy. I think that's a really neat thing that George is doing. And I don't know, the use of blood in the story is so interesting to me. Like what he's able to do with Melisandre and Stannis with the Shadow Baby, all based off of what they did, like just having sex and producing a baby within a magical person's body. Like I often wonder how much in the story is actually real, like when it comes to mysterious stuff that happens, like how much of it is actually magic or how much of it is a misunderstanding. But in those cases, it seems, especially if JOJENPASTE is real, in those cases, it seems like the blood and everything is real. So there's actually some kind of mystical thing happening with sacrifice and with blood, which is cool.
Well, and you brought up Stannis, right? And Stannis and Melisandre have a lot of that sexual cannibalism, Eliana, again, one of my hosts, she brought up the idea of like cannibalism in this metaphorical sense that Stannis's story in terms of consumption, not just literally eating another body, but like Melisandre using life force to then project a shadow of that person, fucking the life force out of them, using that life force to create a shadow that you're going to murder some dude with. Like, that's insane. And it reminds me a lot, and us a lot of like bugs, right? Praying mantises, red widows, spiders, the idea of killing your mate before or after sex. And that kind of Freudian idea of, as Eliana put it so beautifully, so delicately, vagina dentata, right? Like the complication of desire, the vagina is going to eat you. Jennifer's body, teeth. God, good movie, really underrated. It's sexual cannibalism.
I was just watching Teeth the other day.
So good. It's so good.
I was actually going to watch Bone Tomahawk too earlier today, but then I watched the new adaptation of Rebecca instead. But still,
is Bone Tomahawk as gnarly as they say? Like, I hear that's got.
It's pretty gnarly. I mean, see, you have to understand you're asking me, and I'm the wrong person to ask because, like, I watch things like Bad Biology by Frank Henenlotter. Oh, that's a pretty good example of what you're talking about. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Bad Biology. Yeah, Bone Tomahawk is rough. And so is Ravenous. That's another one. Those are both
really convincing, like gore. Ugh. Is that what it is? What makes it bad?
Mm-hmm. It's pretty good.
Damn.
Bone Tomahawk is a good movie. You're asking me though. I really like horror films, and I've seen some extreme shit. So,
do you have any Halloween recommendations? You can keep them cannibalism adjacent if you want, but I need some. I'm just curious.
Ravenous is good. I always recommend a playthrough of Until Dawn. That's cannibalism adjacent. Let me think.
Are we talking games or movies?
Movie. I think
hostile cannibalism, or is it just torture? I don't watch.
It's just torture.
I don't watch.
I'm not a big fan of like torture porn. Actually, I mean, I like gory movies, but I like them. I don't really like a lot of the Saw films. I like the first Saw film. The first Saw film is really good.
Yeah, I don't watch horror stuff generally. It's just not my thing. Like the jump scare stuff doesn't scare me, and the gory stuff.
I recommend almost any Nightmare on Elm Street film except for number 6. Number 6 is dog shit, and you should skip over it entirely because it's terrible. It's not funny. Like, you just look at the fucking clip with the power glove, and that's it. But Nightmare on Elm Street.
The power glove, like Nintendo.
Yes, yes, that's in Nightmare on Elm Street. The one with cannibalism is Nightmare on Elm Street 5. Bone Tomahawk is good. If you like Bone Tomahawk, watch Ravenous as well. That's another cannibalism themed western.
What about Hills Have Eyes? Is that good?
Hills Have Eyes I actually think both versions of that movie are good. Teeth is great. Jennifer's Body, we've mentioned that one's great. Ginger Snaps. Ginger Snaps is fucking awesome.
That sounds like a cookie movie, but okay.
No. It's a werewolf film. It's a werewolf film. You'd love it, Tara. You'd love it.
Tara, we're gonna make Ginger Snaps while they watch Ginger Snap. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds good to me.
All right.
It'll be like a double feature where it's like Chloe and I on one side, like cooking ginger snaps, all baking and stuff.
Housewife style too. Just like, here's our ginger snaps. Then you have Zach and Wendy in the other room going, here's our ginger snap.
Let me think. Great cannibalism movies. Sorry, my brain just like went out. Oh, Cannibal Holocaust is
Cannibal Holocaust. I have seen that, and I have watched that. It is very messed up.
Damn.
It's very messed up, and it's a classic.
It is a classic,
and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it.
So we did have someone in the chat who was saying that all the talk of like blood and magic may relate to George R. R. Martin's Catholic background.
There's a lot that's cannibalistic. Catholicism.
Yeah, Catholicism is. it weirds me out a little bit. Sorry, I was not raised Catholic. I was raised Baptist. So
God,
yeah.
How are you even on this stream with us? Are you allowed?
Yeah. Hey, at least she's not Amish. Hey,
I'm
she's not like a super orthodox Jew.
Sometimes we grow up and walk away, and that happened with me when I was like 14.
Hey, at least
15,
at least she wasn't. At least she's not a Williamsburg Hasidic Jew. Then she wouldn't even be able to have hair. She would have to shave her head all the time.
But that said, I did grow up in New England. I had a lot of friends who are Catholic. I know a lot about the Catholic faith from them, from like attending their,
long services. They're very long.
What are those
services?
Things that they do when they're teenagers?
Communion, confirmation.
Yeah, confirmation. Yeah, like all those confirmation things and all that stuff. Like, so like I learned a lot about it. But the thing is, like, a lot of religions take communion. Like Baptists take communion. We don't do it the way Catholics do. But
no,
like,
it's transubstantiation.
But it's the same thing. It's like you're supposed to but in Baptist religion, it's very much symbolic. Like we're first of all, we drink grape juice, not wine, because lol, you don't drink wine, y'all. But
even though Jesus did.
Oh yeah.
Right, of course.
Out of water,
but
apparently.
it's like they make it very clear when we're learning about communion and everything that it's all very symbolic. But in Catholicism, they're actually supposed to believe that they are eating the blood and eating the body and drinking the blood of Christ. Like,
and you even see this in Stannis's camp with R'hllor a lot. I think R'hllor, surprisingly, a lot of people would be very surprised, but R'hllor is probably the closest to Catholicism. Like the Seven have a lot of all religions have parallels. First of all, like outside of A Song of Ice and Fire, religions have parallels because they believe in a higher power. All of them believe that their higher power is the higher power. Those are your parallels. Boom, boom, framework. Now, back into it, going forward. I just want to set the stage up. So, like, R'hllor, between the fire parallels, between the body of Christ, amen, between the prayers and the songs and the chants being so prominent, even down to Devin, Davos's son, wearing the altar boy costume with the fiery badge on his heart, the Hitler Youth outfit. That's kind of what it is. But like, even down to that, it's very Catholicism. Like a lot of that, I'm just like, how many more minutes, Mom, do I have to take communion? Like I'm just having the memories.
After communion?
No, I'm having the memories. It's very interesting.
yeah.
And I would say our friend Lonely Cat says, it was a big disappointment when my husband convinced me to go Methodist and switch to grape juice. So,
those poor Methodists.
I went to a Methodist
almost
college.
always that wine doesn't have any ABV. It's usually not real, like real wine at Catholic churches. Almost
it's like cooking wine or something.
Yeah.
Always.
To be fair, that makes a lot of sense because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of Catholics are alcoholics. Some who are in recovery, so you don't want to be given actual real wine to a bunch of alcoholics. Hey, from distant Greece. Hi, distant Greece.
Yes, our friend Broken King is reaching out from distant Greece.
Oh my gosh, it's late there. Or early, very early. 7
hours.
Donald
Boy lost his arm at the sea.
Oh, they're 8 hours ahead.
Yeah, there you go.
Sea stored and maybe somebody ate it. I'm wondering what's going to happen to Victorian's arm.
Oh yeah.
Ew.
Well, it's interesting.
I'm pretty sure if anybody eats that, they're going to be screwed.
No, who's going to eat that?
The dusty
Well, it's already pre-cooked.
Yeah, I know,
pre-cooked.
But it's going to be too useful to eat. It's going to be something good.
There is cannibalism in that plot, right? Euron, when he comes back from the Corsairs, he tells Victorian that he had the 3 warlocks. He had them eat the one warlock. He forced the warlock to be fed. And then, no spoilers, but later we learn it's a true story because he still has the warlocks that he's speaking of for the time being.
In A Song of Ice and Fire, it seems like there's no, like one of you mentioned earlier that it's folks that aren't highborn that have been sort of tricked into, duped into, or forced into eating the flesh of other people. In A Song of Ice and Fire, it seems like so far, correct me if I'm wrong, is there no one that's eating flesh for power specifically, like eating the heart of their enemy specifically? Maybe in the Dothraki culture, I mean, they're eating the heart of a horse, But I mean, that's all. It's organ meat is nutritional. It's very nutritional. Like wild animals go for it first. It's something that we should be eating. My dog loves to eat that kind of shit. But obviously, like, I'm not getting the spirit of a warrior if I eat their heart. I'm probably just getting the nutritional benefit, right? But like in the Song of Ice and Fire, does anyone go, I'm going to bequeath your magicfulness? Is that something that happens?
Not in a straight way, right? Not that's given to us straight. Like obviously the brand moments. Yeah. Okay, let's come to the table. The talking point is JOJENPASTE real or not?
Right,
yes,
right.
It is. I'm sorry, it is. It obviously is. All of the chapters are framed in sacrifice. Bran just saw the vision at Winterfell after having the Weirwood paste, sees the vision about blood sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, that kind of brings like us back to the Arya thing as well, where it's like she's questioning what she's eating, and the kindly man is like, oh yeah, it's just pork, but again, right after that is when she finally starts like connecting with where she starts seeing more than what she was seeing before. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, it's obviously there is magic in the blood. There's like oh my god, I'm like flashbacking to like church. I'm flashbacking to church.
Oh god, get her out of there.
I'm pretty sure there's a song that's like there's magic in the blood. There's magic in the blood.
Should I sing Habadi Should I sing Habadi Gila to make you feel better?
Oh no, don't do that either. Worse.
That's a good one though.
Okay.
Get her out of there. Drag her out.
What about Dany in the heart of corruption in the House of the Undying?
Yeah, if you remember, so the chapter. Hold on, I have it right here. Dany 4. A long stone table filled the room. Above it floated a human heart, swollen and blue with corruption, yet still alive. Westeros. It beat, a deep, ponderous throb of sound, and each pulse sent out a wash of indigo light. The figures around the table were no more than blue shadows. As Dany walked to the empty chair at the foot of the table, they did not stir, nor speak, nor turn to face her. There was no sound but the slow, deep beat of the rotting heart.
Keep reading.
No, that was it. That's all I'm giving you, Zach. I'm sorry.
I mean, but is there? So are we saying that could possibly be cannibalism? And if so, how?
Well, I think it is. I think it's more a metaphor of when she ate the heart and what the original horse heart was supposed to mean for her, and what it was supposed to mean about taking back her home and going home. The House of the Red Door, for example.
And I was thinking about.
She's the stallion that mounts the world, correct? Like.
Well, her son was supposed to be, but yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that actually, like, and thinking about like Dany eating the horse heart, and yes, it's a horse heart, it's not a human piece of flesh, but she is at that point, that is like her complete acceptance of, and maybe into, or acceptance into, and maybe of the Dothraki culture. So, and they are one and the same with their horses. Like the importance of their bond with the horses is like, they are almost like it's like a, brother and sister sort of bond. Yeah. So in a way that it's not literal cannibalism, but it's absolutely figurative cannibalism that she's eating the heart of a stallion. And like you said, her son that is inside her, supposedly being the stallion who mounts the world, that kind of adds that additional.
And if you look at that miscarriage too, I mean, that was, babies kind of are succubi, like they're sucking the life out of you, right? So, I mean, that's a type of cannibalization right there, that it was Dany or the baby, and it was either the baby's destiny or Dany's destiny, right? It was either Dany mounts the world or her son does.
That reminds me, Sweet Robin and his breastfeeding. What? And he also tries to drink from Sansa after Lysa dies.
Right.
Why would you say this, Wendy?
Why would you ever remind us of that? No!
I didn't. George did.
There's magic in the blood and the breast milk.
I didn't do it.
King's milk, actually, Zach. It's called King's milk.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
So if this is like canon, and it is, at least what we're talking about, and if JOJENPASTE is real. Yeah. Well, I'm more so just talking about the blood being actually effective. Yeah. If that's really a thing, then will we see someone like Euron later just being like, fuck it, I'm going in myself and just eating someone or something to get the power from it?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Because so you have,
if anybody's going to be a cannibal in this if anyone's going to be an intentional, like, bloodthirsty cannibal, it's going to be Euron.
Right.
Come on.
Well, and so no big major spoilers. I won't give any spoilers for the Winds of Winter sample chapter excerpt. But if you haven't read it, what are you doing? You know you're starving for content. Read it.
They've read it.
You're starving for content. It's so good. You have to read it. Look it up. Use the Google machine. TWOW, The Forsaken. If somebody has it, post it in chat, the link. But it's so good. But there is a sacrifice going on. Again, won't go into details, but there's a huge sacrifice to the gods that may or may not raise a giant something from the sea, a Leviathan, to, fuck some shit up. And so that's to put it bluntly, right? And it's going to require a huge sacrifice to do that. So it wouldn't be surprising if, that is a form of cannibalization in a way. He's cannibalizing these people, but wouldn't be surprised if Euron then moves from having the warlocks be consumed by each other to consuming magic himself that way. He already consumes Shade of the Evening, and that's a corruption of the Weirwood, really, when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Is that what it is? Is that how they make it there?
It's the exact opposite colors. It's the Nightwood. A really good group of people, Archmaester Emma, Crowfood's daughter, and Amy Blackfire just put out a really cool video on YouTube, I think, today about that. So they probably have it all compiled. I'll find a link soon and throw that in the chat, but check it out.
Well, you also have the ability to edit the video, I think, so you could just throw it in.
Listen, Tara. Listen.
So
Nightshade breakdown. Sorry,
we've got it's
cool.
Yeah, no, it is, and that was something I picked up on early on, was that it's the opposite of what we're supposed to believe about the Weirwoods. But it's also, to me, it always was it read more like a drug, whereas the Weirwoods, we've not seen, other than eventually, in Dance with Dragons, we see Bran being fed the Weirwood paste, and we're supposed to believe it's just the Weirwood stuff, but we all know it's probably not. So, not that they don't have their own magic, they certainly do, but I think there's things that the addition of somebody's blood,
you could supercharge it. Imagine if you were drinking it or eating that with Bran's blood.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's a protein shot. Talk about some platelets.
Yeah, no kidding. Proteins, platelets, all of it.
So we've got just a few minutes left. Do we think the Skagosi will actually be cannibals, or is it all just talk?
I think it's just hype. I think
there might have been some history where they were, but I doubt they are anymore. I think it's these things, they might have existed at one point, but eventually,
it's not sustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing, is it's not sustainable. Their colony already has a lot of issues. They have treacherous waters. Their land isn't a huge harvest. They can live off of it, but they can't live off their people. I think it's ritualistic at most.
Yeah.
At most.
If it even still exists anymore, which I do think it probably did at one point, because, most legends and stories like that come from somewhere. But yeah, and the one story that we do have is a maester who was saying that they raid other people and they kill and eat their men. That doesn't mean they kill and eat their own people.
I also think to an extent it is prejudice that's spread on purpose, just like how you have the free folk being called wildlings. They're not wildlings. That's a slur against them. They're free folk. Wildlings is a name that's used for a savage. It's used not just about them. Cersei uses it about the Dornish. It's used about people from across the Narrow Sea. It's not a term for the free folk. So when you say wildling, remember, it's a very umbrella term that gets used for savages in Westeros. So I think it's a lot of that. I think it's because if you look at actual history of Westeros, more people in Westeros have had runs with cannibalism than out of Westeros that we meet. You have the Rat Cook is a story that originated in Westeros. You have the Night Fort. You have Wyman Manderly chilling below the wall, someone who's very,
we didn't bring up the Frey pies at all. What's wrong with us?
I don't know what's wrong with y'all, but
we didn't talk about the Frey pies. We forgot the Frey pies.
Because I feel because nothing that is just some straight up revenge. There is
Titus Andronicus in the house, motherfucker.
Like literally, that is just straight. It's like the Rat Cook. It's just straight up revenge. They are. He just kills the Freys, and he's like, "Oh, have your."
so funny. They're like everyone in
fam
Greece, these guys
meat
suck.
for dinner.
Just give them the meat of their own people. Who cares?
Is anybody mad about Frey pies?
Right, that's what I
like
mean.
it's like I want to eat that.
Frey lives don't matter. Okay, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Like would not all
No.
Freys.
Oh,
Yeah, I think the point of the story is like maybe not to judge the whole book by its cover, but you know, color me wrong there. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Like,
I judge if
oh,
there's a
for
book that says Mein Kampf on the cover. I judge it.
Well, this isn't that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like. Sorry,
Look, I don't want
my
the
dog just
Frey
like
to
exploded
die.
out from under my feet and startled the crap out of me. I didn't even realize he was under my desk. Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh, Dan Pepper in the chat with just 10 question marks. I'm sorry, Dan.
Dan, you came in like way too late to understand anything.
Where's the chat? How do I see the chat?
You got to go to the video on YouTube. But Dan Pepper is our longtime attendee who always dresses in the Frey hat for the tournament. And
I think I jousted him.
Yes, you did. You did.
He defeated me.
Of course he did. Has Dan Pepper, has he ever won, or does he always get bested by like Pasha at the last minute? Like
everyone gets bested by Pasha at the last minute.
Yeah, that's true. Broken King wants to know if George makes a case for vegetarianism.
It's unfortunately also not sustainable in Westeros right now. So,
well, yeah, especially right now because
there's no food.
Winter is coming, and the only things you're gonna have to eat is like the starving animals you can find, and we're just gonna say animals for now.
Pig.
Yeah.
It's a really good case for pig, in my opinion.
Yeah. But I hope somebody ends up eating the rich, at least in Westeros at some point.
Turn my mic up.
So I guess last question before we kind of wrap up: are blood sacrifices real, and do they work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I think
hit or miss.
We've seen it, but I think it's often
technically
miss than hit.
Daenerys did a blood sacrifice, and technically it worked. Technically, it worked.
Right. But like it doesn't. Okay, Wendy, you want me to count how many people do blood sacrifices?
But that's my point.
But that's the thing. When they do work, if something only works 50%, then that doesn't really work.
I'm just saying, sometimes
it's exactly what was promised. The blood sacrifice. Drogo was alive. Now I'm saying that they're bad. They're still bad. I'm not saying they're good. I'm just saying that they technically do, and that's it's like dramatic irony. Technically, they do what you ask them to do, and they do happen
sometimes.
So, yes, if you do them right, but they will do exactly what you ask them to do.
But how?
I don't know about
exactly. Do you have to be a magic person, like
not exactly as you want them to do, but ask you exactly as you ask them to do.
Ask Aegon V if it worked exactly well for him. You know what I mean?
No, I'm not saying it. No. I don't think it worked well for him. I think it worked exactly as he that's the whole point. Is that it's sort of like you ask for a thing, you get what you want. That happens all the time in the Song of Ice and Fire. It's a big thematic thing in the Song of Ice and Fire. People asking for what they want, and then they're asking for something, and they think they get what they want, and it turns out to be absolutely horrifying. So yes, technically,
I would
in the worst way.
I would say that it's like they never work. If they do work at all, they never work the way people want them to. So in that case, they don't really work. I mean, that's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a modern example, and I've got like something like on the tip of my tongue that's just like not forming, and maybe I just should shut my mouth because honestly, I might say something I shouldn't.
Like a modern example of blood magic?
No. Like a modern, like just like a sort of a similar example of like you want this thing, like you want, like you kind of will this thing to life, but it doesn't like work the way you want it to.
I'll give you a perfect example in the series, and like, but in real life. Okay, the audience wanted to see Cersei horribly punished for all the horrible things she's done, and Cersei did get horribly punished in a way for a lot of the things she's done, but it didn't go. We didn't get what we really wanted, did we? It was horrifying when we were given what we want. It horrified us and made us feel terrible and we hated every minute of it. Unless you guys unless you're some kind of fucking weirdo who liked the shame walk.
But I think that's a little splitting hairs and semantics, and I think that's bringing a completely different feeling into it, other than the fact that, for example, another character close to Cersei, Qyburn, Gregor Clegane, when he brought Gregor Clegane back, Cersei said, yeah, sure, just bring him back, whatever, right? But when Qyburn did it, it didn't turn out perfectly, which is what Tara and I think, are saying, is that the plan is to bring things back, or the plan is for this blood sacrifice is going to stop the snow. This blood sacrifice is going to this. But if the blood sacrifice did what it was meant to do, then why do you keep making the blood sacrifices over and over again to try to win? That's more what we're saying, is like,
it's like
it doesn't always
dramatic
work.
irony thing. It's a dramatic irony thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a dramatic irony thing. I think we kind of feel the same way, but I feel like it's like we're saying it in different ways.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's a hard thing to even like pinpoint, because like, let's be real, like again, it just because something sort of works doesn't mean that it works.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. But like, I mean, like on the most technical level, it's like it's a monkey's paw thing. It's a monkey's paw. You kind of get what you sacrifice for, but you don't really get what you want. You get what you say, you don't get what you want.
What about what you need? Is that factored in there somewhere?
I'm
serious.
Shut the fuck. Yeah, okay, Mick Jagger. All right, whatever.
And on that note, we're at like just over an hour, so I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys for joining. If anybody wants to continue the discussion, obviously, like, comment on the video. We will definitely be checking it, or comment on our Facebook post. We'll definitely continue talking to you guys.
Hit us up on Twitter.
Yes, any of us. And also, we'll be back next Friday. Maybe not all of us specifically, but we do have a panel next Friday on Warm Bodies. It's the undead in Song of Ice and Fire. I know Zach is going to be on it, and Hannah as well from Game of Owns, and Lady Gwen from Radio Westeros.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I will be on there to introduce anybody or anything like that, because to be honest, I am not going to be home next weekend. But yeah, we will definitely have a panel going next Friday at 8 p.m. So join us then. And we've got one the following Friday. We'll give you more information on that as it comes about. But thank you guys so much for joining the chat. I miss all of you all too. Like, I see you all in the chat.
Hey,
I miss you guys so much. Dan Pepper, I kept the freight talk to a minimum for you.
I was nice about the phrase for you, Dan. No one else. Yeah, maybe Patrick Doherty, but that's it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Pat too for sure. Pat and Dan.
Frey off so much.
Frey boys. All right. Thank you guys so much. We miss you guys, and hopefully we will see you in April.
Hopefully. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Tara Lynn's A Geek Saga podcast. If you like what you heard, please check out my website, ageeksaga.com, or consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/ageeksaga.